All right, so let's get into a training on how to lock in without putting pressure on yourself. So this is something, oh, hey Riri. This is something that I know we are all thinking about because it's about to be October. Generally during this time of year, if you are a person who has goals and who has a vision for your life, you are looking at how you can make the most of these last 3 months of the year that we have, and then how you can set yourself up really well for the year that's to come. That's typically where my mind goes during this time, and that tends to be where a lot of people's minds go. So I wanted to pop in and just really share, and we'll be here for like a minute. Like, I'm expecting this to be about 45 minutes long or so, and really just share what it looks like to lock into a vision and to really commit to it, and to commit to the level that it takes so that you can actually be successful. Okay, I'm back. I needed to check my Bluetooth settings, but how to commit to the level that's required without putting pressure on yourself, without tying your whole self-worth and beliefs about your future to whatever is going to happen in the next 3 months, especially, and also to your process of manifesting and achieving your goals in general. I want you to create success in your life while feeling great about yourself along the way, while feeling great about yourself even when you try something and it doesn't work out. And that is really what we're going to be talking about today. So I have a ton of notes. They're up there on my screen. So if you see me looking up here, not making eye contact with you, that is why. And then I also just want to make sure that we know, and that I say this before we get carried away, if you're interested in doing this work with me one-on-one more deeply, I actually have one spot available right now in a 3-month private coaching package. And that is where we really go into how this is coming up for you specifically, and how we can really bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be, how you can create a beautiful end to your 2025 while setting yourself up really well and getting a head start on your 2026 goals. So if you resonate with this conversation, if you resonate with my content, I would definitely encourage you to apply for that private coaching spot. And the last day to apply is tomorrow, September 30th. So without further ado, I'm going to look at my notes. And the first thing that I told myself, the first thing I wanted to make sure we talked about, is it is completely false. It's just straight up a lie that in order for you to succeed and in order for you to accomplish your goals, you need to abandon yourself. So what is self-abandonment? I think about self-abandonment in 2 ways. The first is self-neglect, like not taking good care of yourself, burning yourself out, overworking, anything where you are putting yourself second at the expense of your own well-being for the sake of achieving your goals, because that is a trade-off that you don't need to make. You are 100% capable of being well-rested and having a full cup and taking great care of yourself while achieving your goals. But the reason why a lot of people think that there is a trade-off is because we collectively live in hustle culture, right? And hustle culture is driven by fear. It's driven by anxiety. It's driven by scarcity, right? The idea that there is only so much to go around and you have to outwork everybody else so that you can get your piece of the pie, right? That is all our collective misconception about our dreams and our desires. Because really, our dreams and our desires, the ones that are placed in our heart, the real ones that we have for ourselves, we're meant to walk those out. We're meant to bring those to life. And there's nothing that could actually stop us from creating that and stop us from achieving our goals, except our belief that we don't want to do what it takes because we think it's going to take too much out of us. What if it didn't have to be extractive? What if it didn't have to be, putting yourself on the back burner? Like I said, what if none of that was required? What if you could really bring your biggest, most ambitious visions to life without putting yourself second? So that is one way that people abandon themselves, is burning themselves out, exhausting themselves, neglecting basic things like sleep and movement and eating well and whatnot for the sake of their goals. And then the second way that people abandon themselves on the way to their dreams is by going against their own values. So doing things that you don't agree with, doing things that either require you to hide certain parts of yourself or downplay certain things that are really important to you, or even sometimes just straight up do things that if you had the choice you would never do, but believing that this is what it takes, believing that you have to go against your own values in order to create the success and the goals and the vision that you have for your life. So again, none of this is required. This is incredibly outdated. This comes from back in the day when we were all really brainwashed, and by we I just mean humanity was brainwashed into believing that a certain type of person was successful while another certain type of person couldn't be successful. And we could have a deeper conversation about things like white supremacy or homogeny, or even like American essentialism, like beliefs that Americans are like above everybody else. But any belief where we are taking humanity and dividing it into categories and pitting people against each other leads us to feel like we have to be different from how we actually are in order to succeed. And so if you have it somewhere in your head that you need to change yourself, or who you are authentically isn't right, or there's something wrong with you and you're not going to be accepted, or you're not going to be able to succeed at the level that you want to unless you quote unquote like assimilate or try to make yourself different so that you can fit in with certain groups, or whatever it might be, trying to be impressive on paper in a way that really has you going against your values, like I said, in a way that really has you abandoning yourself. Know here and now that that is not necessary, and that that is not true, and that that really is a social construct. Like that's something that we all subconsciously agreed to, but that doesn't make it true. Even if 100% of people in the world believe something, that does not make it true. Perfect example, there was a time when a lot of people believed that the earth was flat. Some people still believe the earth is flat, but most of us have come around to realize that the earth is not flat. But just because a lot of people believed that the earth was flat did not make the earth flat. It didn't. And so just because a lot of people believe that you have to work yourself to the point of burnout, go against your own values, neglect your own needs, and be performative and inauthentic in the world in order to create the life that you want, that does not make it true. And so what you want to really look at here is to ask yourself, what do you believe is going to be required from you? And what are you afraid is going to be required from you in order to bring your goals and your visions and your desires to life? So that's the first thing that I want you to really look at when it comes to locking in without putting pressure on yourself. Just ask yourself, like, what am I afraid this is going to take? What am I afraid this is going to require from me? And just be curious about that and be honest with yourself if you do believe that you are going to have to abandon yourself in one way or another in order to get to these goals. Because if you believe that you're going to have to abandon yourself, one of two things is going to happen. Either you will abandon yourself, and either you'll hit the goals or you won't, because sometimes you abandon yourself and then you don't even hit the goals. Or you will not pursue the goals because you think that they're going to take too much from you and you're not willing to give that up. You're not willing to give up your authenticity. You're not willing to give up your self-care. You're not willing to give up these various things. And so you are just going to say, okay, I'm not going to pursue the goal. And I don't want you in either of those camps. I want you pursuing your goals and believing that you get to have them and taking action towards them in a healthy, aligned, and sustainable way. And that really is the work that I do with my clients. I recently interviewed one of my clients who just said that she used to talk herself out of going for her goals because she would tell herself it's going to be too much work. I'm going to have to burn out. It's going to be exhausting. And through working with me, she learned how to go after her goals in a new way, in an aligned and sustainable and really just like fun and healing way. And now she is actually creating the life that she wants for herself and living out the dreams that she had when she first came to me. But she had to change her own beliefs and expectations about what it takes to actually get where you want to go. And so what she said is what I'll say actually. She was like, you know, if the first path that I can think of doesn't feel aligned, then that's not my path. There must be another path. And that's the kind of conversation that I want you to have with yourself as you're locking in, as you're setting your goals and starting to go on the path towards them. I want you to start reminding yourself, you know, if the first path that I can see does not feel good, especially if it looks like it's going to require self-abandonment, because there's a nuance here, right? It doesn't feel good because it's going to require me to grow, and growth is good. We want growth, versus it doesn't feel good because it's going to require me to shrink and make myself smaller and take up less space actually, and again, like abandon myself. And only discernment can help you actually understand that nuance. And that's one of the things that I work on with my clients as well, is like, are you resisting this because it's actually not authentic and aligned for who you are? Or are you resisting this because it's going to ask you to stretch and expand, and it's kind of like a fear response? So that is a lot of the work that I do with my clients, is like, why are you resisting this process? And is it actually the healthiest thing for you to go through with the process so that you can get the growth? Or is it the healthiest thing for you to try to find a new process that is going to actually be more aligned and authentic and sustainable for you? But as you're locking in and as you're setting your goals and as you are really like being honest with yourself about what you want, I want you, first of all, again, look at, what am I afraid that this will require of me? And then start to notice for yourself, check in with your intuition. Is this asking me to grow and that's why I'm afraid of it? Or is this asking me to shrink and that's why I'm afraid of it? Let me know in the comments if that makes sense, if you have any questions, but I just really want that nuance to be in your head, because once you have started to think about your goals this way, it will be much easier for you to lock in without putting that pressure on yourself. And then I have a couple other things, but I just want to pause. I'm going to hydrate a little bit and just check in and see how that's landing for people. Okay, so we talked about self-abandonment. The next thing that I want you to do as you're locking in so that you don't put pressure on yourself is to lock into who you are becoming, not just what you are pursuing or what you are creating. Because the truth is, circumstances, they change. You know, there's really no amount of like money or no particular relationship or no, there's nothing you can put on a vision board, no physical thing that could actually really meet the deeper things that your soul is craving. What your soul is craving is growth. What your soul is craving is wisdom. What your soul is craving is healing, right? Like, these are all aspects of who you are and your relationship to yourself and how you move in the world, rather than what you have. And I'm not saying don't have goals that are like physical or material, but what I am saying is put these goals in context. We start to put pressure on ourselves when we put the goals on a pedestal and when we make them mean something about our self-worth, and when we make them mean something about how we view ourselves. Maybe we don't allow ourselves to feel successful until we've made a certain amount of money. Maybe we don't allow ourselves to feel smart unless we get a certain job or whatever it might be. Okay, I'm going to pause and read this comment. So, do you think it's possible a goal can feel like both growth and shrinking depending on the aspect? You can put more details in the chat if you want to, but I'll just share my initial thoughts. So the goal itself either feels aligned to you or not, but what we're thinking about here is assuming that it's a goal that is aligned, assuming that it's something that your heart wants and that you would love to create or you would love to experience, or like it feels really authentic for you. The thing that we want to look at is the process. A lot of the times with manifestation, people get really caught up with the how and the process. And when we look at the process and the way of getting there, we want to ask ourselves, is the way that I'm thinking about doing this asking me to shrink or asking me to grow? So for example, let's say that you want to make $10,000 a month, right? Now, it probably is a desire of your heart to make $10,000 a month. It probably is something that would be really supportive for you. It probably is something that, really would enrich your life and could be a really fulfilling experience for you. But then the question becomes, what do you think you need to do in order to get there? And if you're saying, I think I need to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, I think I need to, make myself look and sound more like that other person because that other person makes $10,000 a month and they don't look and sound like me. I think I need to insert thing here. If you think you need to do things that are actually more about shrinking and making yourself smaller and abandoning yourself, then that's what we need to look at. Versus, I want to make $10,000 a month. I think I need to start making a bigger impact in the world and start providing lots of value to people so that they can really get a sense of what it would be like to work with me and so that they could feel comfortable paying me. That's growth. I think I need to work on my relationship with money so that I can feel comfortable receiving large amounts of money and not wanting to spend it all right away. That's growth. So it's really about your perception of the process rather than your perception of the goal itself. Setting an aligned goal that is true for you and that really is the desire of your heart is kind of like another conversation entirely. Because sometimes we can set goals that are like, I only want this because I think it'll make me worthy, or I think it'll make me a good person, or I think it's what I'm supposed to want, or some other person told me I have to have this, otherwise I won't be okay. Like, those goals are not aligned goals because they're not coming from a place of desire. They're coming from a place of pressure. They're coming from a place of trying to prove yourself. But if you just sit with yourself and ask yourself, like, what do I want? If I could have anything, one of the questions that I used to give a lot was, in a parallel universe where everything is possible and there's no rules and no limitations, what do you want? And your heart knows, like, what you want, what vision you have for your life. And then, of course, from there, as I've been saying, once you know what you want, it's, what do I think it takes to get what I want? And that's where we want to do the work. That's where the piece about locking in without putting pressure on yourself, that's where it becomes really interesting. But being honest with yourself about what you want is the first step. Those are my initial thoughts. Let me know if that makes sense, or if you have like follow-up questions, or if you want to share more details about like what's going on specifically there, and I can help. Okay, so that was a really good question. And as I was saying before, let's talk about locking into who you are becoming, not just what you're creating. So really what I want to say here is you are always becoming a more expansive, more expressed, more fulfilled, more authentic version of you. You are becoming a higher version of you. And when I say a higher version of you, it's a version of you that really feels like I'm being who I want to be. I'm, spending my time in ways that are really, really meaningful and impactful. And I'm proud of the life that I've built for myself. And I'm proud of the way that I feel in my life. And I trust myself to continue to create amazing things. And it's really more about an identity of like, I am a meaningful person doing amazing things, and I have a great life, and I love my life, and just like going through your days feeling that way about yourself. And whatever that looks like for you physically, in terms of like, and that version of me lives in this kind of place, and that version of me makes this kind of money, and that version of me does this kind of work, and that version of me is in these kinds of relationship dynamics, and that version of me dresses in this way, and that version of me, whatever, like that all comes next. But first, you need to get clear on who you are becoming, and then from who you are becoming, it will become natural what it is that you are manifesting and what it is that you are creating. But lock into becoming a version of you. Lock into becoming that next level you, that next chapter of you. Maybe a version of you who is more self-trusting, a version of you who is more at peace, a version of you who is more comfortable with money, a version of you who is more comfortable with their family, a version of you who has stronger boundaries. Like, who is the version of you that you really want to become? And how is becoming that version of you connected to you achieving and manifesting your desires? And just like really think that through, because if you think about like a desire that you have, like for example, let's say you want to buy a home and you want to use manifestation to like help yourself buy a home. The version of you who has bought a home is likely a version of you who is very comfortable with money, someone who can handle the responsibility of owning a home, who takes care of their space. If something needs to be repaired, they're on top of it. Like, the version of you who owns a home has certain qualities. What are those qualities? And fill this in for your goals. The version of you who has your desires, what are the qualities that they have? And how can you cultivate those qualities? So I want you to think about, like, as you're locking in and as you're saying, like, this is what I'm pursuing, this is what I'm creating, you're really thinking about, this is who I'm becoming. And how can I practice becoming that way in my everyday life? So I'll give you an example. When I decided that I wanted to manifest more private clients, I had to look at my relationship with boundaries, right? Because the more private clients you have, the more people that you have to respond to, and the more people whose like life and energy you're holding. And I wanted to make sure that I would have the capacity to do a good job and to give all of my clients the attention that they deserve without like overextending myself, right? So I needed to make sure that I had strong boundaries. And one of the things that I decided was, across the board in my life, not just in my business, I wanted to stop sending paragraphs over text. And at the time, I was a person who sent paragraphs over text a lot. And paragraphs over text, to me, are just an inefficient way to communicate, especially because if I'm sending a paragraph, it's probably something that I should be explaining either on a phone call or on some kind of call or in a verbal conversation. But once I'm writing out a paragraph, it doesn't need to be a text anymore. And I needed to work on that because I knew that that represented a version of me who was more efficient with my communication and who had stronger boundaries about how I get my ideas across, how I show up in conversations. And it wasn't just boundaries necessarily, but more just like, how do I want to communicate? And when I see myself having, twice as many private clients, do I feel like I can have conversations with all of them? Because my clients get voice notes and text messages in addition to their calls. And I was like, if I'm doing this twice as much, how do I need to be in these spaces? And I was like, okay, sending paragraphs of text is not going to be it when I could send like a 30-second voice note and say the same thing. And it's like a lot more efficient. So I practiced getting more efficient in all my relationships. When I'm texting friends, when I'm texting family members, when like whatever I'm doing, if it's going to be a paragraph, I'm switching to a voice note. And that's just something that came up for me, right? So really what we want to look at here is like, when you think about the version of you who has what you want, how are they different from you now? And what can you do now to cultivate that version of you, to show up as that future version of you? So I'm just going to look at my notes and make sure that I am on track here. So yes, okay, become the version of you for whom the manifestation makes perfect sense. So what I really mean by this is like, for some people, it just makes sense that they would have a certain thing or that their life would be a certain way. And I want you to really just ask yourself, like, there's a version of me for whom, you know, being in a really beautiful 25, 30, 40, 50-year marriage makes perfect sense. Who is that version of me? Who are they? There's a version of me for whom having, you know, a really beautiful job that I look forward to doing every single day, that pays me really well, that fulfills me. There's a version of me for whom that makes perfect sense. Who is that version of me? How do they think? What stories are they telling themselves? What are the ways that they show up in their relationships and in their communication and in their day-to-day life? You know, how do they process it when something doesn't go their way? How do they process it when something does go their way? Because a lot of people, when something does go their way, they make it the exception. They make it a fluke. They make it something that I can't expect this to keep happening, or, oh, this was lucky, but it, you know, can't get my hopes up that it'll happen again. So how does that version of you react when something does go their way? How do they react when something doesn't go their way? And I had some more questions here. Let me see. What actions, behaviors, and habits do they have? And then really I also have, like, do they have their life on a pedestal? So a lot of people put their results, put their manifestations on pedestals. They basically tell themselves, you know, this thing is far out there in the future and I'm over here and I'm just little old me. And people who make $10,000 a month, or people who make $20,000 a month, or people who really love their work and who, you know, enjoy their careers, like, those people, they're just not me. I don't have the luxury to be that kind of person. I'm not that kind of person. And it really takes looking at that and seeing, like, the version of you who has that reality is not thinking that way. The version of you who has that reality is not putting their reality on a pedestal, because it's their reality. It's their everyday life. It's normal for them. It's normal to live in that kind of place. It's normal to dress that way. It's normal to work in those environments that feel really good. It's normal to have those things. And so ask yourself too, are you normalizing it, or are you continuing to put it on a pedestal and, like, chase it and feel like you're climbing up to it? Because if you try to lock in to creating a goal, if you try to lock into a manifestation, but you have the manifestation on a pedestal, you will automatically put pressure on yourself. And the whole thing will feel so exhausting and so draining, and like you're never doing enough, and you will just continuously burn yourself out because you're making the goal this big thing on a pedestal rather than just something that's normal and something that is inevitable for you. And so from there, I want to talk about the stages of belief. So this is kind of like a thought process that I think will help you as you are locking into your goals, that will keep you from putting all the pressure on yourself. So the first thing that really comes up with people locking in, people deciding they're going to manifest something, is we always get told, you have to believe that it's possible. You have to believe in it. And if you don't believe in it, it's not going to work. And you can't doubt. You can't have any doubt. If you have any doubt, you're killing the manifestation. But really, it is more nuanced than that. And I don't want you to put pressure on yourself about feeling like you have to be 100% in faith all the time. But what I want you to actually look at is that faith, belief, confidence, all of that, it's on a spectrum. And you want to just ask yourself, do I see myself making progress on the spectrum? So the person who puts pressure on their self is like, it's either black or white. Either I believe or I doubt. Either I have faith and I'm trusting, or I'm doubting and I'm ruining everything with my doubts. And that will trip you up every time. That will have you putting pressure on yourself. That is very exhausting. But if you choose to lock in and not put pressure on yourself, you're going to look at faith and belief on a spectrum, and the spectrum goes, I see my vision, and right now I think it's impossible. That is like the first step on the spectrum. If you currently think that your vision is impossible, what you need to do is not shame yourself about it. You don't need to tell yourself you're wrong. You don't need to start being afraid that you're ruining your manifestation. But what you need to do is just get curious about, okay, this feels impossible right now. You could ask yourself, why? Why does it feel impossible? You could also ask yourself, what do I think would make this feel possible for me? And just get curious and see what comes up there. Or you could also just say to yourself, even though it feels impossible right now, I'm willing to believe that I can figure it out. I'm willing to believe that I can figure it out. And seeing yourself as someone who figures things out is much healthier than seeing yourself as someone who it's either all or nothing. I can do it or I can't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, start to see yourself as someone who can figure it out, even if it looks impossible. So the first part of the stages of belief is impossible. The next part is possible, right? So either you believe it's impossible, you believe it's possible. Then we go to probable, so it's likely to happen. Inevitable, so it is 100% going to happen. Inevitable is like, nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to get there. It's going to happen. Then we have imminent. Imminent means it's about to happen. Imminent means it's on the way, any day now, it's about to happen. And holding imminent belief, holding the belief that your manifestation is imminent, is pretty advanced. Like, it takes a lot of courage and confidence to believe that your goals are imminent and to believe that they're right around the corner, especially if you have a history of watching the clock and trying to assess, is it going to happen this month? Is it going to happen next month? When is it going to happen? Spinning out over the timeline is a lot different than saying, my goal is imminent. It's about to happen. It's on the way. And so maybe you're not there, and maybe it's going to be a process of getting there. And so after imminent, then the final step on the stages of belief is that it's done. And done is literally just it's already happened. It's in my physical reality. I've manifested this cup of water and it's done and I'm holding it. So it's not necessarily something that you are stretching yourself into believing. It's just an observation at that point. And so I want to talk a little bit about these stages of belief, because when you start to view your belief system as a spectrum like this, it will be a lot less daunting and you will feel a lot less bad. You won't put as much pressure and shame on yourself if you notice that you are not in 100% full confidence all of the time. You don't need to be in 100% full confidence all the time in order to make progress on your manifestations. And waiting to be in 100% full confidence is going to hurt your manifestations way more than it will help your manifestations, because it keeps you in a perfectionist mindset and it keeps you believing that you are not good enough or that you're not ready, when really you probably are a lot more ready than you realize if you would just give yourself the chance and put yourself out there and try. And so you might be in the place where you're looking at your vision, you're looking at your desires, and you're like, this feels impossible. And again, if you're there, what you want to do is say, even though this feels impossible, I am willing to figure it out. What is one piece of this that I can figure out right now? I was on the phone with a client the other day. What is one small, manageable step that you can take today that would bring you closer to it? Even if it feels 1,000 miles away, can you take one step in that direction? That's really all you need to do if you're at the point where you're like, I want this, I know I want this, but it feels impossible. And so if you are at the place where you're like, it feels possible, maybe it doesn't feel probable, maybe it doesn't feel likely, but it feels like, it could technically happen. It's in the realm of possibility. What you need to say to yourself is, I believe it's possible. I'm willing to believe it's possible for me, because that's another thing. People are like, yeah, it's technically possible, but do you believe it's possible for you? So I believe it's possible. I'm willing to believe it's possible for me. And what would it take for me to really believe that it's likely to happen? Why does it feel unlikely, even if it feels possible? What's making it feel unlikely? And then that will point you in the direction of any healing that you need to do. And that will really point you in the direction of okay, my personal growth, my growth is to work on whatever has led me to start believing that this isn't likely for me, because that will help you reach the next stage of belief, which is, I see this and I think it's likely to happen. I see this and I think it's probable, right? Like more than 50% chance that this will happen to me and that I can create this and that this will be a part of my life. And when you find yourself there, it's really exciting. It starts to feel really juicy. And what you want to build towards is believing that it is inevitable. So going from, it's like, it's more than 50% chance that it'll happen, into it is 100%. I am certain that it will happen. I am certain that this will happen for me. I am certain that this will be a part of my future. I'm certain that one day this will be mine. And so if you're at probable, if you're like, this is, I think this is likely, I think this could really happen for me, and you want to get to, I know that this could happen for me, what you want to start doing is really asking yourself those questions that I gave you about like the identity of the person, and like, if this was really in my reality right now, if I wasn't putting it on a pedestal, how would I be thinking? How would I be thinking? How would I be showing up? What actions would I need to start taking and stop taking? How do I need to show up differently in the world so that I can get even more in alignment with the version of me who has this result? Because once you feel like you're in alignment with the version of you who has the result, it does feel inevitable because it's normalized. It doesn't feel like it's like, this crazy thing. It's like, oh yeah, this makes sense. This is my inevitable next step because of how I show up in the world, because I'm doing this, because I'm doing this, because I see myself in this way. It's inevitable that one day I will have this. So it starts to feel like, just as a natural result of you continuing on the path that you're on, you will have this result. It's kind of like you're shifted onto the same timeline as your manifestation. And so that's how you get to inevitable. And then getting to imminent, which is our final step before it actually manifests, believing that it's going to happen any day now, believing that it's right around the corner, believing that it's going to happen quickly. That, like I said, is advanced. It really requires you to go through these stages step by step. Don't try to skip to imminent, because if you try to skip to imminent, you will freak yourself out about the timeline, and you will go through that cycle of hope and disappointment where you're like, oh my God, it's going to happen tomorrow. And then it doesn't happen tomorrow. And oh my God, it's going to happen this month. And then it doesn't happen this month. And then you start to really doubt yourself. And again, that's where the pressure can creep in. So imminent, like I said, it's advanced. And what you really need to do in order to believe that your manifestation is imminent, like is about to happen, is you need to be very, very well versed in what you're manifesting, what your manifestation is, and also what are the intermediate steps that you would need to see in order for your manifestation to fall into place. So I'll use a business example because a lot of people in my community resonate with that, and I have a business, so it comes naturally to me to talk about it. But if, for example, you're manifesting a new client, one of the things that you need to know so that you can believe your manifestation is imminent is, my work is in demand. People know about my work. People are interested in working with me. People can see themselves working with me. Working with me is something that like people are really excited about. They're excited for it. They're reaching out and asking me about it. They want to be a part of my world. They want to work with me. They want to be my client. You need to know that that is true. And knowing that that is true will lead you to believe that your manifestation is imminent and that the clients are going to show up any day now. But it's really not just your beliefs about yourself anymore. It's your beliefs about the world. It's your beliefs about other people. It's your beliefs about the whole system at large. And it also goes into like your spiritual beliefs, like your beliefs about factors that are outside your control. So not feeling like, I'll only believe it's right around the corner if I can make people sign up, which you literally can't. Like, you can't control other people and you don't need to. But I'll believe it's right around the corner because I'm choosing to hold these beliefs about the other factors at play. So any people involved, any decisions that need to be made that don't include you, anything that's not in your control, you need to have really strong beliefs about those things, the things that you cannot personally control that are still related to your manifestation. And once you believe that the things that are not in your control are still going to work out for you, your manifestation will feel imminent and you will believe that it's going to happen any day now. And ultimately that will be true for you and you will bring it to life. And so there's beliefs about yourself and who you are that you need to change so that you can become a new version of yourself. And then broadly, there's beliefs about the world, beliefs about other people, beliefs about God, spirit, the universe, beliefs about various things, like I said, that aren't in your control, but your willingness to believe that they're working out for you. And once you have all of those beliefs lined up, beliefs about you, beliefs about other people, beliefs about the universe, God, spirit more broadly, and your beliefs about the world and the type of world we live in. For example, if you go around thinking, the world is really hard on people like me, and so I probably won't manifest the things that I want in life, that's a belief that you need to shift, and you need to start looking at evidence of doors opening for you, people giving you opportunities, people being on your side, people advocating for you, like whatever it is. But changing those beliefs about other people will be much easier when you have already changed the beliefs about yourself, because we don't want to do this from a disempowered place. I want you to be approaching your manifestations knowing that you have power, you have agency. 80% of it is you and your agency and your decision making. And then it's kind of like, once I have gotten really aligned, once I have done all that I can do, I trust that everything that's out of my control will also work out in my favor. But it's like you working on you first and you really getting your own sense of agency and empowerment and alignment first. And then from there, looking at, I'm willing to believe that the forces and factors outside of my control are also going to line up and work with me and meet me where I'm at, really, because I know who I am and I have become the version of myself who is a match for these results. And therefore, the other factors that I can't, 100% control are going to mirror back to me what I already know to be true about myself and my life trajectory and where I'm going. So I'm going to take a quick glance at my notes. Let me know if this is all landing. Let me know if this makes sense. Let me know if you have any questions. But really, that is a lot of what I wanted to say about how to lock in without putting pressure on yourself. In closing, I had some thoughts about manifestation that I wanted to share with you. A lot of people get drawn to manifestation because they think it will make their goals easier to reach. And they think that, it'll help them create the life that they want in a way that feels more free and more liberated. And that is all true. Like, I will say, yes, there's effort. Yes, there's growth. Yes, there's a learning curve. Yes, there's a lot of getting outside of your comfort zone and doing things that your past self would be scared to do. But also, if I had to choose between manifestation and doing it, quote unquote, the world's way, doing it in the traditional way where you feel like you have to jump through hoops and check every box and, work twice as hard to go half as far and all of that. If I had to choose between that and manifesting my desires, I'm choosing to manifest my desires, because manifesting allows me to grow as a person in the ways that matter most to me. Manifesting helps me become the version of myself that I want to be versus becoming the version of myself that the world thinks I should be. And so in that way, it is easier. It takes off all of that cognitive dissonance and unrest inside of you when you have been performing and grinding your way through life. I'm thinking of a quote that is actually in Spanish, but I'm going to say it in English. I saw it years ago and it really spoke to me. And the quote says, "Everyone talks about how hard it is to be an artist, but no one talks about how hard it is for the artist to not be an artist." And that stuck with me, and that's really how I feel about manifestation. manifestation is one of those things that you have to be willing to show up for. It does require growth from you. It requires you to expand and, like I said, get out of your comfort zone and do new things. But it is much more fulfilling and rewarding and sustainable to do it that way, where you're growing as a human and you are expanding and your nervous system is growing, which means that you can actually handle these new steps that you're taking. You can handle being outside of your comfort zone. Like, that type of growth, while it is stretchy, it is so much easier than trying to grow in a direction that you don't want to be in. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really is so much better. Like, for example, and I have one more thing coming to mind, and then we will start to wrap up. But for some reason, I'm also thinking about, like, if you are, let's just say you're an apple, right? And you want to create apple trees, and ultimately you want to create an apple orchard, right? You're going to have to expend energy. Let's just say, for the sake of this very peculiar metaphor, to go from apple to apple tree to apple orchard is growth, right? It's expansion, it's change. But to go from apple to orange is like excruciating. Like, to go from something that you authentically are to something that you're authentically not because you believe you have to is devastating. And that is why a lot of people live unfulfilled lives, is because they are apples believing they have to be oranges in order to succeed and in order to bring their vision to life and in order to feel good about themselves and in order to whatever, fill in the blank. Versus believing that I, as an apple, can grow into an apple tree and that apple tree can grow into an apple orchard. Like, yes, there's effort, but it's authentic, it's aligned, it is very sustainable, it is doable, it is something that you are 100% capable of, and you can do it for the rest of your life. Versus, let me grind for as little as possible and see if I can retire early so I can quit this. You know what I'm saying? So yes, there's work involved. Yes, there's effort. But in the grand scheme of things, it is so much easier to use manifestation to bring your goals to life. It is so much more fun. It is so much more fulfilling. It is so much more rewarding. And it will leave you in a much better place overall, holistically, versus the person who barely slept, barely took care of themselves, barely spent time with their loved ones, but they have, you know, a bunch of accolades. Like, it's just no comparison, especially because you can get the success and the accolades a different way. And so that was a lot of what I wanted to say to you. I have this 3-month coaching package open, and what I really want to invite you to think about as you're deciding whether or not this is the next step for you is really think about locking into the version of you that you will be 3 months from now, after you've done this work, after you've dove deep into these concepts, after you've really let these different ideas make sense to you and land for you. So after you and I have really talked about, like, your belief system and expanding your beliefs, after you and I have really gone on that journey to figure out, like, who is the version of you that you're becoming and what are those adjustments that you can start to make, that's a lot of what we'll be doing in the 3 months, is like getting really clear on how you can stretch yourself to show up differently and how you can support yourself to take those new actions via the nervous system work that I do, via the habit change work that I do. Like, really, like, what does it look like to become a new version of yourself? So that's the 3 months vision. But then after you know how to become that version of yourself, think about who you'll be at the end of next year. And think about who you'll be 5 years from now. Because it's not just that you know how to create new things and manifest cool stuff, but you know how to become a whole new version of you. And when you know how to become a whole new version of you, there is no limitation on what you can create and on how you can direct the flow of your life. So if you decide that you want to, do this thing and it's completely different than what you've been doing before. You just know, okay, what version of me do I need to become in order to succeed in this area? And I honestly think that's why I have been pretty successful across various fields. Like I've shared before, I was at MIT before I started my business. I was studying urban planning and environmental policy at a very high level, and I really thought that I was going to go do that for the rest of my life, and I had a lot of, promise in that field. But then I decided, actually, no, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to be a life coach, I want to help people change the trajectory of their lives through the lens of psychology, through the lens of spirituality. And the reason that this business has been successful is because it wasn't just like, oh, I'm pigeonholing myself here, I'm good at, policy, and I'm good at thinking about these types of issues, but I can be good at anything. I know that I can become good at anything, and that is because of the work that I really do with my clients. Is like, who is the version of yourself that you need to be so that you can become good at what you need to become good at, so that you can create the life and the vision that you see for yourself. So it's deep work, it's very rewarding work, and it's the kind of thing that I really, if you're feeling called, if this resonates with you, I would love to support you in it. It is not something that you need to do alone. It's something that you get to be really held and supported through. So we've been on here for quite some time. I have absolutely loved sharing this with you. If you have any other questions, you know how to get to me. If you want to apply for private coaching, you can DM me for the application link, or it's also going to be in my stories, and it's going to be in my emails if you get my emails. So there will be plenty of ways to find the application. And the last day to apply for the private coaching spot is tomorrow, September 30th. So I can't wait to read your application. I have really loved delivering this training for you, and I hope you have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. Mwah. Oh, I'm so glad that this has been great. I've loved this too. Take care.